Hey everybody, welcome to the 11th seminar in our light tackle marathon. Remember, on April 11th, we're going to be having our light tackle sales event. We're going to have a parking lot party with barbecue, kids games, and prizes. We're going to have a rod and reel trade-in and a bunch of discounts on all your light tackle fishing gear. So make sure you guys come on by. Today with me, I have Craig Sheridan of NLBN and Jigging World here to talk to us a little bit about open water striped bass fishing. So, Craig, you want to introduce yourself, tell the people a little bit about you and what you do?
I'm Craig Sheridan. I have been striped bass fishing the Chesapeake Bay and the surrounding areas for about 20 years. I didn't get good at it until I was probably 17 or 18, but over the years I've kind of fished up and down the East Coast. I went to college in Florida. I've kind of surf fished quite a bit. I've fished, rivers for all sorts of different stuff. And along the lines of kind of narrowed down the gear that I like to use, and I would say Jigging World and NLBN are kind of the big two for me. I fish mostly NLBN products in the bay, striped bass fishing, especially in open water, and you're going to find Jigging World rods on my boat pretty much all the time.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. Jigging World and NLBN are sort of made for that open water rockfish bite. So anybody who's looking to go out there and do that, we are going to educate you a little bit on it today. So first up, you want to talk about some of these NLBN lures that you like to throw and maybe which rods you would throw them on?
Sure. So I would say the go-to open water bait for me, we'll start with the 5-inch, is going to be the 5-inch paddle tail. There's a handful of standard colors. I'm pretty simple when it comes to colors. I like white, I like natural, I like dark. I don't need a whole bunch of fancy colors, so I selected the white 5-inch. On the 1 ounce, that's going to be my standard selection as long as it's not too windy or we're not fishing super deep water or super fast moving water. But most of our open water in the Chesapeake Bay is going to take place between 10 and 40 feet, and I find that the 1 ounce 5-inch is a great offering for that. I'll typically fish that with 7-foot medium heavy Night Ranger or Onyx or Nexus. Kind of any of those will do the trick. That's going to be your go-to bait if I'm seeing fish, up high, if I'm seeing a mid-water column, if I'm seeing them down low. I can always deliver that bait to them. You're going to want to, snap jig it, keep it in contact with the bottom, and as it touches the bottom, hop it up. If the fish are low, you can, cast and retrieve it in like a search bait fashion, and you can even use it in the shallows. So that's going to be my probably number one go-to open water bait.
For sure. And so that being said, of that being your number one go-to, the 5-inch isn't doing it for you. I know you have a 3-inch and an 8-inch here. When would you pick those up and start throwing them?
So I'm going to pick the 8-inch up when I think the conditions make it more difficult for the fish to find the lure. The 8-inch is going to move more water. It's obviously visually a larger profile compared to the 5-inch. And it's a little bit thumpier when it swims. It's a little more responsive in your rod, so it's kicking off a bigger vibration. Sometimes that it's harder for them to find the lure are going to be if it's kind of dark out, like a cloudy, overcast, rainy day. If the surface is broken up, so if it's rough, or if you have like a current ripple, something that's preventing the sunlight from penetrating the surface of the water easily. And then if I'm fishing for fish that are on big forage, if I'm on a school of adult bunker, where the baits are this big, yeah, you obviously want to match the hatch. But that's less important to me actually than the other concepts. Like if the fish are having a hard time finding the bait, go big.
100%. Now, I guess on the opposite end of the spectrum, when would you downsize to that 3-inch NLBN size?
The 3-inch is kind of a sleeper weapon, especially here on the Chesapeake Bay. We don't have a lot of guys who are throwing little baits for big fish. And I think that's because you don't always have to here. The water's generally dirty. The time that this is going to shine is if the water is really clear, if it's noon and it's bluebird skies and the fish are in 15 feet of water and the sunlight's really getting down there and they're just being skittish or finicky. Sometimes you'll see them suspending on a thermocline that's 15 feet down, and it almost seems like as soon as your bait gets in front of them, they just scatter around it. Yeah. For the guys that are live scoping out there, I'm sure you're seeing that now, where you kind of introduce a big offering to the scene and all the fish are like, whoa, like I don't like that. The 3-inch is something you can slip in there, and that can get a lot of bites when fish don't want to eat, if they're being wary, if it's really bright out, or if they're on small forage. Every now and then you'll find big bass on, you know, small baits here, but I wouldn't say that's super common. I'm using this as a little secret weapon when the fish are being finicky.
For sure, for sure. Well, that's definitely really great tips about the NLBN lures. Now, talking about pairing them up with the Jigging World rods, I know we got a couple rods that we brought up here. You want to start with maybe the Onyx, and we'll work our way up in price point from there. Talk about that a little bit, what you'd throw on it, what makes it a great rod, things like that.
Sure, yeah, let's start with the Onyx. The Onyx is the entry-level Jigging World rod. It comes in at $100, I think, $109.99. This is going to be the 7-foot medium. This is one of the lighter ones. I'm going to use this rod when I'm search baiting. This rod is super durable, it's super light, and it's got a moderate fast action, I would describe it as. It's rated as a fast action rod, but I would say that it's a little bit more moderate. So what that means is that the tip's a little bouncier. That really helps you sometimes. If you're casting and retrieving and moving your bait laterally, right, you want a little give in the tip, because if your bait is making forward progress and a fish eats it, right, and it eats it hard while the bait's moving away from it, the rod is going to absorb that bite a little bit, and you're not going to pull the hook out of his mouth, and you're also going to keep fish hooked a lot better. So I would say the Onyx is a great rod if you're a beginner who needs a little bit of forgiveness for that hook set. It's a great rod if you're doing a lot of search bait fishing, especially for smaller fish when we're fishing, you know, the 3-inch in shallow water, top water. This is a great top water rod. This is going to be a great kind of all-arounder for anybody looking to get into light tackle fishing in the Chesapeake Bay.
Awesome, awesome. And then moving up, I guess we'll move to the Equinox. That's a newer one that we just got in recently, but I know a lot of people have been asking about it, picking it up and playing with it in the store. So what can you tell us about the Equinox and what you'd use it for?
The Equinox is fun. This is a fun new stick that really just hit the market from Jigging World. This is a little bit different than the other rods we're going to talk about today. This is a 6.6 medium heavy in my hand, but it barely weighs anything. I mean, I can hardly even tell that I'm holding it. This rod is going to be more of a finesse presentation rod. This, to me, is going to take over the Chesapeake Bay for light tackle jigging. The other rods we're going to talk about are more traditional inshore rods, right? They're going to range from 7 feet to 7'6". They're going to be a little bit bulkier, still very sleek and streamlined, but this is a little different. This is going to be a new technology version of rods that we're used to fishing. A little shorter, super crisp, super fast, super sensitive. So this rod I'm not going to use for casting and presenting lures horizontally. This is not a search bait rod. This is going to be my rod that if I see a group of fish on the depth finder, right, there's a pod of fish sitting on a small rock pile, for example, and I need to get a bait to a spot where I know where the fish are, this is going to allow me to get that bait there with a super fast tip. I know however much I move my rod tip, that's how much my jig moves, right? So that's really important when you're precision fishing.
Definitely.
The other thing, with speed comes sensitivity, typically, right? This rod is going to be super sensitive. In the wind, this rod is going to excel. If you're fishing a jig head that's just heavy enough to get to the bottom, this rod's going to excel. You're going to be able to feel the very subtle bottom touches really well with this rod. I think that this is going to end up being a rod that everybody has on their boat. You're going to be able to fish, you know, through the lineup of Equinoxes. You're going to be able to handle anything from 1/8 ounce 3-inch baits all the way up to 2 ounce 8-inch baits, and it's just going to be a matter of selecting the right power for the application. But this rod has a future on the Chesapeake Bay.
I 100% agree. It's something, like I said, customers have been excited about. All of us guys here in the store have been excited about it. So the Equinox, definitely something to keep in mind. But moving up from there in price point is going to be the Nexus. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So this is the Nexus 2.0. This is the all-arounder that Jigging World makes. It's the most popular rod. Most people who own Jigging World rods own a Nexus 2.0 in some capacity. This rod is going to fish similarly to the Onyx. but it's made of one step higher materials, one step higher carbon, and it's also going to have a more moderate side of the fast action tip, but it's a bit more sensitive than the Onyx. So you can get away with fishing lighter jigs. You can fish some more finesse presentations. The thing that kind of floors me about the Nexus is that it's a workhorse. You can overload this rod to the extreme. Yes. I've caught fish that honestly have no business being caught on this rod.
Same.
Over and over again, you know, and you keep pulling harder and harder, and you think that something's going to give, and it just will bend a little bit more and a little bit more. And I've had this thing corked to the handle all the way, you know, spool locked with a reel that's too big for it, with a redfish pulling downwards, and nothing gives. So I think that this is going to be a great rod for throwing big lures. Anytime that you're beating up your gear, if you're this is a great rod for drum fishing when you're, you know, getting a lot of bites from big fish and you want to, you know, pull those fish hard to get them to the boat quickly so you can stay on the school. Great for that. I think that this ride kind of speaks for itself in the sense that when you pick it up, you feel that it's light, it's high quality, it's durable, and it's kind of a do everything. It's also got a really extensive lineup. There's Nexus 2.0s, you know, from medium power in a shorter length all the way up to a heavier power in 7.6. So I can outfit a boat with just Nexuses, and you can do everything you want to do in the Chesapeake Bay.
100%. A do everything rod is the great way to describe it. I mean, I've done everything on that rod from flounder and tog to bull redfish, open water stripers, even jigging for catfish. Like, you can do anything with that rod. So I mean, I would agree with you. If you guys are going to get one Jigging World rod, just one, I would go with the Nexus. But moving up into something a little more specialized at a little bit higher price point is going to be the Night Ranger. You want to talk about that a little bit, Craig?
Absolutely. This is far and away my favorite product that Jigging World makes, and not because it's the most expensive, because it matches our fishing applications the best. This rod is wicked light, extremely powerful, and this is going to be, you know, getting towards the extra fast style tip that everybody in the Chesapeake Bay really tends to love. That's kind of been popularized by the light tackle fishing kind of community. Everybody likes extra fast. Extra fast is great. I also like extra fast. This rod is going to fish like an extra fast, but it has a little bit more forgiveness in the bend under load. So I find that a lot of extra fast rods are great for getting the bite, but the problem is they're so stiff that once you have the fish hooked, stripers like to shake their head, and big bass particularly have a way of getting off. A 50-inch fish, for whatever reason, spit the hook a lot. They move so much water, and so it helps to have a rod that helps absorb those head shakes. And so somehow, I'm not quite sure how they did it, but this rod kind of boasts the extra fast style tip that you need to get the bite, but also provides you with some forgiveness in the fight, which I think is awesome. I think the Night Ranger, one really important thing to talk about with the Night Ranger is the weight rating. Earlier you said on the Nexus you've caught everything from tog to bull reds, right, on that rod. These rods were initially designed to bottom fish for tog. So the way that they're going to weight these rods, rate the weighting, is going to be based on how much weight this rod will excel using in a vertical fishing presentation, right, when you're tog fishing. That's very different than what we're using them for. We're using them for casting artificial lures. So this rod is a 7'3" medium heavy. It's rated to throw 2 to 6 ounce lures. That's a little bit weird for the Chesapeake Bay, right? I have rods on my boat, or I previously had rods on my boat that were rated, 3/8 to 1 ounce, right? And I would throw 2 ounce jigs with them.
Right.
This rod will fish similarly to that. I do not recommend casting 6 ounce lures on this rod, right? This rod this particular model excels between 1 and 2.5 ounce jig heads, right? So total lure weight, you're talking about 1.5 to maybe 4, really 3.5 ounces. So don't be dissuaded by that lure rating, right? We have to remember that this rod excels in the weight rating that we're used to. That's just a little kind of useful side note that kind of threw me for a loop, right? Because the first time I got a bunch of Night Rangers, I got all the lightest ones that were, rated 3/4 to 1.5 or something, and I'd fish a 1.5 ounce jig head and be like, this is not quite right?
Yeah.
So I bumped it up to these, and I found that this is going to be your flagship, best stick on the boat. I'm putting my best reel on this thing. I can fish this thing for small striped bass with small lures and feel every single thing. The graphite or the carbon construction is remarkable. And I can also fish mid-tier baits, and I can cover water with it, and it won't wear me out because it's super light. And if I want to go fish heavy structure, right, some of the bridges, some of the rock piles, some of the discharges, anywhere you have heavy current and you want to fish a big bait like this 2 ounce, I'm throwing it on this just the same. I've brought this down to the mouth of the bay and caught redfish on it. I've caught cobia on it. I've caught, like you said, catfish. I've jigged for flatheads with it.
Yeah.
I've caught snook on it. I've caught all sorts of fish, even small to mid-sized tarpon in Florida on it. And it kind of is a pretty incredible top-tier stick. I would say for the money, it's just shy of $300. I would put it up against any flagship rod from any company. I'm talking about $500 sticks, $600 sticks. I'll take a Night Ranger. I have 4 of these on my boat every day that I leave, all the time.
100%, 100%. I mean, they are, as you say, as far as flagship rods go, they are pretty hard to beat. Well, thanks a lot, Craig, for coming in today. We definitely learned a lot about Jigging World rods and NLBN lures when it comes to fishing that open water rockfish bite on the bay. Before we wrap up here, do you want to tell the people where they can find you if they have any questions, if you're on social media, stuff like that?
Sure. You can find me on Instagram at The Real Troutman. That's the only social media that I got. I'm happy to answer questions about any of the things we've covered today, or honestly, Chesapeake Bay fishing questions in general. You can always feel free to shoot me a message. You also can find me lingering around at Anglers Sports Center often, particularly in the springtime. I'll be milling around, picking stuff off the shelves. You can also ask anybody in the staff here. They are all really educated, Chesapeake fishermen that are familiar with all this stuff too. So there's a lot of resources that you can turn to get info about NLBN, about Jigging World, about Chesapeake Bay striped bass fishing.
Cool. So remember, guys, April 11th is going to be our light tackle sales event. We hope to see you guys all there, and we'll see you in the next video.